The primary purpose of this podcast is to inform and educate. The information and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the official position of the Life Saving Society of Ontario.
Hello and welcome to the Lifeguard for Life podcast, officially episode 1 of season 2. So
welcome back to Stephanie. It's been a while.
I've missed you. It's been a while since we, hung out and chatted and brought in some experts to answer our burning questions. And to all of our dedicated fans and listeners, we're sure you've missed us just as much.
That's right.
All right.
And I hear you had, since our last podcast, I hear you've had a bit of a change. So what are you up to now?
Things have gone down, Jason. My life is changing. I have actually returned to the Life Saving Society as a staff member. I am now the corporate communications manager, working with the marketing communications team, which I worked on, I think, as you know, I worked on previously. And it's been about 7 years that I've been sort of in other roles in other organizations. And This opportunity came up, and it's a great place to work. The team's fantastic. And obviously the Journey Prevention mission is near and dear to my heart. So I'm back. I'm managing the social media channel. So if you're listening to this, make sure you're following us, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Get on there and give us a follow. Obviously YouTube, so you can watch our fantastic podcast if you more keen than just listening to it and you want to see our bright smiling faces. But yeah, that's sort of what I'm up to at the moment, and I'm very happy to be back.
That's great, and welcome back. Congratulations.
What about you, Jason?
Well, I'm still in Woodstock, but I'm kind of, as you can see, I'm wearing my National Lifeguard t-shirt. I'm pretty excited about our topic today, which is the National Lifeguard program was updated. So we're talking all about the new program that came out, or the updated program, and everything that goes along with that. So I'm also kind of excited about it because I'm teaching next month a National Lifeguard instructor course, and I'll be able to get to teach the new content, which I'm pretty psyched about. And they're always creating new resources right now. So I'm actually get to host the Lifeguard Services Committee this weekend in Woodstock. They're using my pool to do a bunch of filming for some of the resources that I'll make available for their instructors. So I'm pretty excited to be part of that.
That sounds very fun. So yeah, as you said, we are talking about the new NL program updates. And we kind of thought, who better to ask about the changes than the two people who were most integral in making these changes sort of happen, especially on the Ontario side of things. So today we have National Lifeguard Program Manager Merrick Holk, and we have the Lifeguard Services Committee Chair Adrian Wong joining us. So let's get into the interview and see what they have to say about the program. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Merrick and Adrian. We are so happy to have you on here with us today to talk about the National Lifeguard updates. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
So I guess we'll jump right into some introductions. So Merrick, why don't you go first and tell us a little bit about what your role with the society is?
Of course. So I'm the program manager that oversees the lifeguard and first aid program. So a lot of the operationalizing on the society side. So working with various different affiliates, trainers, but as well as working with a lot of the other branches in terms of developing our programs, ensuring that they're run to a specific level of quality, investigating in complaints and concerns when they do come forward. And then, as we're going to be talking about today, implementing different updates or revisions to our programs across our province.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. And Adrian, you are the chair of the National Lifeguard Committee. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that entails?
Yes. My name is Adrian, and I'm the Lifeguard Services Chair for Ontario. So my role as a volunteer is that I work with a committee of volunteers, and essentially what we do is that we try to provide support to Lifeguard Services Ontario, whether it is developing resources, whether it is taking a look at topical items where we can provide support to instructors and trainers, and to support the program overall as a whole, and to work with the society staff to move the program forward.
Fantastic. All right, well, we're super happy to have you here today. So let's jump into some questions. First, we're going to ask you, maybe Adrian, you can take this one, but can you sort of speak to the purpose of updating the programs? Every so often that we come out with a new program, new ideas, new things that you have to cover. So can you give us a bit about sort of the history? Like, what is the purpose behind that?
Certainly. So with the National Lifeguard Program, it is a national program. And one of the quality assurance pieces is to complete sort of like a cycle review to ensure that the program is still relevant, that it is meeting the affiliates' needs, not just in Ontario, but across Canada, and to see how we can make this program better, make it more applicable, and help develop better lifeguards overall as a whole. So this is sort of like something that the Licensing Society at the national level do about every 5 years. So it's pretty much sort of like that 5-year cycle where the National Training Programs Commission essentially looked at the program, collected feedback from affiliates, feedback from instructors and trainers, but also took a look at what are some of the challenges in delivering the program in today's day and age, and what are some of the things that we can do better to be with it with the times. So essentially, it's just more of a program review that was planned, and actually with this new program, as later on we're going to go through, there's a lot of great changes, a lot of streamlining in terms of the consistency overall as a whole, and I'm excited to see this program being offered in the upcoming years.
I'm just curious, Adrian, was this like your first project as Lifeguard Services Chair? Like they would just throw you right into revisions?
Yep, pretty much. So they essentially needed somebody to move forward with the project. So it is a great challenge, definitely a challenge, but very excited to.
In good hands.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say in good hands, but I try.
Okay, so I have some questions too. So everyone's kind of wondering what is in the new program. So I get questions all the time. I've been kind of talking to my staff, like the new program's coming, you'll be able to see it soon. And of course they always, push a little, like they want to know, what physical standards are in there still. They always ask me about the endurance challenge every time. So maybe this question's for Merritt. Can you go into some more details about, like more specific details about what's new in this program?
Yeah, of course, I'd be happy to. The one misconception I think that has been floating around that this is a massive overhaul of the program, and that's furthest from the truth. As Adrian was talking about, the society on a regular cadence reviews all of its programs. So at the national level, National Lifeguard fell into this pattern, and the recommended changes that have been implemented as part of this National Lifeguard update are just that. It's just an update. So thinking about a car, you're not changing every single piece of equipment in the car, changing the tires, changing the transmission, changing the chassis, doing a paint job. It's not a massive overhaul. We're just upgrading the engine a little bit, so to speak. So some of the main changes reflected include ensuring that all of our physical standards conform to Canadian Human Rights Commission. And what we mean by that is in some of the old physical standards, there were some items that required you to, for example, select a victim. And some of the notes that we had was relative to the rescuer size. Well, regardless of the size, whether you're on this side of the spectrum or that side of the spectrum, regardless, that is discrimination. So we've had to remove some of those human rights related factors in deciding who is eligible to be a victim and who not. And we turn those physical standards into objective and measurable. So we've reduced the number of physicals from 6 items down to 4 items, and all 4 items can be done without the use of humans being victims, meaning that if there's a piece of equipment required, we're using a piece of equipment, for example, the brick. So the endurance challenge is still 400 meters in 10 minutes using any recognizable stroke. The object recovery is still a 20-pound object located 15 meters away up to a distance of 3 meters deep, completed in 40 seconds or better. The underwater swim is still 15 meters underwater swim. And the last one is your sprint challenge. There is one difference and one change with the sprint challenge in that you no longer need to do a head-up stroke. So you are able to swim any stroke 50 meters within your 60-second time limit, and then the corresponding yard equation. So those are the highlights in terms of physical standards. In terms of management items, Life Saving Society regularly performs research on a variety of different things. And as we'll talk about a little bit later, hopefully, is the spinal injury conversation and really our changes regarding the terminology used. You'll first recognize in the bronze programs that we're moving away from the words of immobilization, and we're moving more towards the words of, or the verbiage used as, restricting spinal movement. So we can talk a little bit about that and what that means. But we've done a lot of research regarding management items, in particular spinals, in the fact that if there's a spinal injured victim and they're not breathing, the priority is they're not breathing. So we need to start CPR as quickly as possible. And that might mean get them out of the water, start CPR as soon as possible. In terms of situations, there's much more continuity between our bronze programs, which is our assistant lifeguard certification, all the way through to national lifeguard. So there's much more continuity built between those 2 programs. But the one thing that everyone will notice that's slightly different with our lifeguard situations is now we have 2 items. We have lifeguard situations as a single guard, but we also have lifeguard team situations. Now, we were always supposed to be evaluating single guard situations, but it was incorporated into one item. And there were times where National Lifeguard examiners, when evaluating, would skip over, for whatever reason, that specific item. But as Adrian mentioned, National Lifeguard is a Canadian award. It's a Canadian standard. And there's operations across the country that are various, whether they're in rural settings, urban settings. There are operations that require only one lifeguard to guard because that's maybe all they have. Right. So we need to make sure that every single National Lifeguard certified individual is able to work in any pool environment holding that certification. So we needed to elevate the fact that we do need to see lifeguards be able to respond in a single lifeguard situation. Now, that doesn't mean a single lifeguard and all the other lifeguards are on the deck kind of just watching them go. Single lifeguard means that they're the only lifeguard working at that operation, and they have to manage all components during that emergency. And there's 2 other small minor additions. We've added a new item, so you'll recognize rescue aid proficiency as a standalone item. And then in lifeguard theory and practice, our item 1s, we've also added the knowledge component of BVMs as well as manual suction. So that's a macro introduction, more particularly focusing on National Pool as the updates, but that's a macro overview regarding what is new.
I have to say, I'm a little disappointed that the underwater swim stuck because it's my least favorite physical. I hate doing it. But I haven't taught in a while.
Right.
And by a while, I mean several years. So what are the 2 physical skills that are no longer there?
Of course. So first, I just want to call out that underwater swim is a very important lifeguarding skill, in that if there is somebody submerged under the water, the lifeguard needs to have the physical competency and fitness ability to go under the water and swim up to those 15 meters. So I just want to call out that underwater swim is very important. Understanding also and respecting that everybody has their preferences in terms of what they like and what they don't like.
Just
and
I'll
take it as that.
We used to do like a head up swim and then do a pia carry, right? So we don't do that one anymore.
Head up swim and PA carry. So great question. So to answer your question, the two physical standards that have been rescinded from the status of a physical standard, they haven't been lost. They've just been integrated into a different area. So the first one is rescue drill. So you would probably recognize that as a 25-meter swim, recover a submerged object, for example, an orange mannequin, or that could be a human, and then bring them back 25 meters, all in under 90 seconds or better. So that skill still exists. However, that item still exists, but now it's a skill item, and the time limit now has also been removed. So we're focusing on more the lifeguard's ability to do the skill, approach, recover, return through a tow or a carry, and the time limit has been removed, so it's no longer a physical standard. And then the second item that you're referring to is the approach and carry. So everybody would probably recognize that as a 15-meter head-up approach, and then recover a distressed non-swimmer, and then carry them with their head and shoulders out of the water for 5 meters. That is still an important skill, but we've included it in management of a distressed non-swimmer item, where the guard completes that skill, but is part of a larger rescue.
Right, that makes sense.
And yeah, that makes total sense. And this is actually pretty exciting stuff. I'm very excited too that the single sits are its own standalone item. I think that's going to be very helpful. I'm also just wondering too, if you could just elaborate a little more on maybe just some of the progressions from bronze to National Lifeguard. Is there anything else in there that really popped out at you, like scanning?
Yeah, I can follow up on that as well. And then for the most part, there is a really good progression, especially if you look at the Bronze Cross program. There's now sort of like situations that are embedded in the Bronze Cross program. You have scanning and a little bit of communication in there as well. So definitely, I'm excited to see the future Bronze Cross candidates taking this program and to see how the gap is now reduced. That jump from Bronze Cross to National Lifeguard. I think the one key success that I'm excited to see is actually if the Bronze Cross candidates learn scanning well, they're really just taking the skills that they've learned and they're putting it in a bigger context. But scanning is still scanning is still scanning. So it would be great to see sort of like that transition. But other than that, between Bronze Cross and National Lifeguard, I think right now it's a more of a seamless transition as you move from one point to another.
I'm excited to see, like, maybe that'll create more confident candidates who are more familiar with SITs too, right? And some of those skills moving to National Lifeguard. So I'm hoping it also results in more higher success rate, which would be great to see.
All right, so we're going to jump into our next question.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So I think at this point, it's kind of, we kind of know about the changes, but there's a lot of things that we rely on as instructors to teach these programs, like award guides, alert manual, Canadian Life Saving Manual, etc. So kind of wondering what have we done with these resources and what other resources are available, maybe new things or updated things that instructors can look out for?
Yep, I can answer that. So one of the key things that I would strongly encourage individuals to, instructors and trainers to purchase is the updated National Lifeguard Award Guide. One of the great things with the National Lifeguard Award Guide is that it's similar to the previous one, but I really like the one section where it talks about learning outcomes. So it's a bit of sort of like the a slow transition moving forward. We previously have a description, we have purpose, and we have must-sees. It's great to see this new style learning outcomes and see how it's now integrated into the item in itself to provide more clarity and whatnot. But definitely there's within the award guide, there's sort of like a slight modification in terms of its structure, added features. In the notes section, there's a lot more clarity in terms of some of the issues that we've seen previously from the 2012 standards up to today. So a lot of those things that instructors and trainers and examiners brought as concerns have been tweaked for the most part to for the better. So definitely that'll be one resource that I would strongly encourage individuals to get. The other one that I'm very excited to share is actually the Lifeguard Services Committee and the volunteers. They've been working really hard with Merrick to develop a Teaching National Lifeguard USB. And the goal really is to have instructor resources to support not only existing instructors, but also new National Lifeguard instructors that are coming on board, teaching their first course, and to go from there. So what was done was that within the Teaching National Lifeguard USB, there are going to be lesson plans for both the pool, for waterfront, and water park. The lesson plans are connected to teaching activities where there'll be sort of like teaching resources, whether it's sort of like handouts, cue cards, scenario cards, so different things that are attached. And then in addition to that, it's connected to sort of like the 3 PowerPoint presentations separately. So let's say nowadays when you're teaching a national lifeguard course and there's Wi-Fi and they provide a projector, or you're bringing your own projector, and there's internet connection and all that stuff, like you could do quite a lot of things that are out there. So the goal really is we wanted to, as we're launching the National Lifeguard Update, to provide sort of like the bare minimum resources to support not only the transition, but to support instructors as they're teaching the new content. And then our goal is to slowly add more. So if, let's say, we have more items, whether it's videos or other things like that, our goal is to slowly, continually to build this National Lifeguard USB. One of the things I actually want to mention as well is that with the alert manual, there are certain content that might not necessarily be in the manual. Maybe it's new content, similar to like the concept of, you know, the use of rescue tubes, the proficiency in using rescue aids and whatnot. We have developed what sort of like the resources within the USB to complement, in addition to what is in the alert manual. So lots of exciting things that are available. I believe also in terms of national lifeguard recertifications, we're going to have additional documents. So for example, notes for examiners that can provide them with further guidance in terms of things to keep in mind as relate to National Lifeguard Update. So lots of exciting things that are hopefully there that's available. And we are also looking at making more resources available on the Lifesaving Society website. Under National Lifeguard, under resources. So still kind of work in progress, but I would encourage people to go check that out.
So if you want to purchase these resources, I mean, especially the award guide and the USB, which sounds really like, I can see Jason's probably like itching to get his hands on the new stuff. Yeah. Such a cute.
He already put his order in.
He's
I already put my order in. Yep. I can't wait.
That's amazing. It sounds like, you know, a lot of the work of like preparing and lesson planning and the guesswork, especially when you're a new instructor. I remember just being like so nervous the first time I taught my first NL and just, you know, poring over those lesson plans and stuff. And it sounds like it's just completely comprehensive, which is fantastic. Can you just hop on lifeguarddepot.com and do an order, maybe call the office? Like what's the go-to on getting these resources in hand? Merrick, I'm guessing that's a you question?
Yeah, I guess I'll take that one. So both resources are available at lifeguarddepot.com. So you can purchase the Teaching National Lifeguard USB as a standalone item. You can purchase the new National Lifeguard Award Guide as a standalone item. And effective mid-November, if you purchase the National Lifeguard Instructor Pack, it will automatically come with the new National Lifeguard Award Guide, as well as the Teaching National Lifeguard USB. So you can no longer purchase the old resources, only new resources moving forward. And you can get them through lifeguarddepot.com. You can also send in an order form to orders@lifeguarding.com, or if you prefer talking to somebody, 416-490-8844, and you can do extension 222 to get to the orders desk.
Fantastic.
Okay, so this is actually a good link into our next question, because our producer in the background here, Patrick King, and myself are both teaching separate National Lifeguard courses near the end of December. So this is great. Our candidates can get the new materials by the sounds of it. But like Patrick and I, we're instructors. Where would you recommend we go to maybe get updated, or get, maybe not updated, but maybe just get more information about the program, make sure we're comfortable and ready to teach it?
Yeah, of course. So we are going to be providing all of the different methods of getting yourself updated on our website. So the go-to is going to be lifesavingSociety.com. Click lifeguarding, and then click on the left-hand side, National Lifeguard, and then 2023 program info or update info. On that subpage, you're going to see all of the information that you need to know. We are providing 3 formal ways to get updated. The first way is by participating in a National Lifeguard Instructor update that can be completed either in person, online, or through a blended format. Affiliates will have the opportunity to start delivering those in the new year. In order to deliver those, you need to be a National Lifeguard Instructor trainer that has attended a branch delivered National Lifeguard Instructor Trainer update. So that's method number 1. It's about 2.5 hours. It is participatory in nature, meaning that if you are participating online, you need to have your cameras on, microphones ready, because you will be engaged throughout. And as well, you do need to have the National Lifeguard Award Guide in order to participate. Now, what's in it for me by doing that? Well, your questions will be answered by a trainer that is very familiar with the updated program, but you do also earn a 1 credit towards your leadership recertifications. So that mode of update is the only way that you will be able to earn credits. There are 2 additional formal ways that we will be providing to get yourself updated. If you do prefer to kind of learn on your own or learn at your own pace, the second way is by watching a synchronous video, so a video recording of one of our trainers going through the content and providing the rationale of why the changes were made, what they are, and so forth. For that, again, you should still have your National Lifeguard Award Guide, but the great thing about that video is that you'll be able to go back and watch it as many times as you want, or fast forward or rewind to the sections that pertain more to what it is that you need to know for additional clarity. The links to that will be posted on the webpage that I just mentioned. And then the third way that you can get yourself updated is by downloading and going through what's called the National Lifeguard Instructor self-learning guide, which is essentially a modified version of the PowerPoint that we're delivering in the instructor updates, but it provides information on the screen, but as well as specific notes that are catered to the reader. So if you do prefer to read what the updates are, that's going to be your mode of getting yourself updated. For the second and third methods that I just discussed, you will not earn credits for it, but everybody learns differently. And that's, I think, one thing that we've really focused on during this update phase is providing various modes of getting yourselves updated. And everyone learns differently. And
the
that
time
will also,
commitments, right?
and the time commitment, absolutely. And even the physical accessibility.
Yeah.
If we do mandatory in-person, updates, you need to get yourself to a pool, and that's more than a 2.5 hour commitment. As we kind of mentioned at the top of the podcast, the changes are an update. It's not a massive overhaul. Therefore, we were able to deliver these updates in the modes that we are delivering them based on the content and the context of what the updates themselves actually are.
I love it. I love that we have multiple options to do it. It just makes it so much easier for us as NLS instructors to do that.
And if you want, you can do all 3.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Overkill,
And then I
but
guess that kind of leads into the exam policy, really. Does that update, does this new National Lifeguard update affect the existing National Lifeguard exam policy?
Yeah, I'll take this one too. So it does. So the National Lifeguard exam policy will be posted also on the webpage. The new National Lifeguard exam policy is effective January 1st, 2023, and it applies for all national lifeguards. So affiliates will have a transition period throughout 2023 to transition from using the old program, the 2012 program, to using the 2022 program. Affiliates must transition before the end of next year, so before December 31st, 2023. But regardless of what program you are running, 2012 or 2022, all National Lifeguard courses and exams must abide by the new updated National Lifeguard exam policy effective January 1st, 2023. So I just want to get that disclosure out of the way.
Okay, sorry, recap that for me one more time. So the new exam policy is effective January 1st, 2023. But you are saying you can run the existing program until December 31st, 2023, as long as you're implementing the new exam policy.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I do get
you
it.
need to, exactly. Some of the highlights of the National Lifeguard exam policy, there is no change regarding the facility requirements for hosting a pool National Lifeguard course or recertification. So the pool requirements are still the same, at least 15 meters long, at least 5 meters wide, and at least a depth of 1.5 meters deep. But what we have included are facility requirements for waterfront, surf, and water park options as well. So just want to be clear that we're not defining what makes a water park a water park. We're just defining which facilities are able to host a National Lifeguard course by providing the context of what amenities need to be present, right? So we also help to define what differentiates a waterfront versus a surf. So the spoiler alert is the surf needs to have waves and different types of water features for 60% of the time. Whereas if it's just an open water environment, that would be constituted as a waterfront, right? So it just provides a little bit more context regarding differentiating waterfront from a surf pool from a water park as well. So that's one change. Another change is we've expanded the equipment list. Now the equipment list has been expanded because there is an increased need for the new National Lifeguard updated program for more equipment. I mentioned that one of the new items that we're adding is rescue aid proficiency. So in that item, we're going through various different buoyant and non-buoyant aids. So we're prescribing the minimum required rescue equipment that needs to be present, such as reaching poles, rescue tubes, life jackets, PFDs, and so forth. So we're talking about an expanded equipment list. The first highlights to that we shared with the affiliates through our Lifeliner, I believe was back in June. So that's been out for a little bit. And then the other change is the National Lifeguard research items are defined, and the National Lifeguard course items in terms of what's being evaluated are defined as well too. So what's in a course versus a research are defined, and that's laid out there as well. The other thing that we did as well with equipment is we provided a little bit of a definition regarding what is the item that we're talking about. One common question that I receive in my role here is, what's a CPR mannequin, and can I use my old Actar 911s? You know, the Actars with the blue foam peaks and the black button. So what we've done is we've changed the name from CPR mannequin to resuscitation mannequin, and we've provided criteria for what constitutes a resuscitation mannequin. So it needs to have a way to provide artificial respiration, demonstrate compressions, and so it needs to meet certain criteria. And yes, an Actar 911 does meet that criteria. So
because that's nostalgia for all of us.
Absolutely.
Those
absolutely. And there's lots of pools that still use that that specific item. So it's important to recognize that yes, it does make it, but we also have to recognize that the industry is moving in a way where many different products are becoming available, right? Everything from the Prestons, Actars, or DFib models that the Life Saving Society carries, but there's other manufacturers of resuscitation mannequins that are just as good. So we need to make sure that we've identified the criteria, and then anyone can use as long as it meets that criteria. So yes, Actar 911s are still permissible to use. I'll just read out the definition just to make sure that I've got it for the group. A CPR mannequin is designed for practicing compressions and ventilations that include disposable lungs. So those are the three criteria. You've got to be able to compress, artificially respirate, but it also has to have a ability for artificial lungs, such as a bag attached to it.
Yeah.
Which is great that you have that in there because not everyone remembers to use them.
Exactly. You need to use the bags because lifeguards need to know how to effectively artificially respirate into a victim.
Yes.
We don't want the first time that they're ever artificially respirating into a real situation or a real person. We want them to train the same way that they will experience a real emergency. So please, 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 everybody that's listening or watching, please use those disposable lungs every single time. Don't just say putting on my lungs or putting on my gloves. Actually do it.
Good.
Okay, now I have some other questions. So as someone who isn't currently certified as a national lifeguard, but really would like to do a recert and might take Jason or Patrick's course coming up, I probably won't. I'm wondering, are there changes to the research? So maybe Adrian, do you want to walk me through if I'm going to a research, what changes I could expect?
Yep, for sure. So with National Lifeguard recertification, there's only a few items that are changed. Like when you think of recertification, you would have sort of like your physical standards, you would have your management items, and then you would have your situations.
Okay.
So really, those are sort of like your three main buckets that are still fairly consistent for the most part. As a individual taking the recert, in terms of lifeguard situations, now for the most part, they've split lifeguard situations to single guard versus team. So
you're going to expect to do both.
Yeah. So if somehow previously you somehow never done both before, you will for sure now do both. So it's now clearly outlined, which is a great thing. Another thing that's actually good as well is that they've started to add in a new item that is more specifically to scanning and observation. So previously, the way National Lifeguard examiners evaluate scanning and observation is that they'll just kind of look at it during situations. Whereas right now, it could actually be run as a standalone item. So National Lifeguard examiners, and we actually do have sort of like that note, I think I might have previously mentioned, notes for examiners as relates to NL research with the new update. So that document will be available at one point on the website. But an NL examiner can choose to say, all right, I'm going to do a scanning and observation activity. And I'm going to evaluate your ability to demonstrate scanning and observation as per the must-sees. So if somebody were to do that, during your research, they're not making stuff up. They're actually, opting in to do that. Whereas for other examiners, they could be saying, you know what, like I'm comfortable with embedding it within situations and then evaluating it within situations. So,
and I suppose if you're doing situations and you're kind of like, I think this person's maybe not meeting the mark on that, then you could choose to add that in as a separate item.
Yep, they could. Yep.
Yeah.
And then another thing that's interesting when I was looking at the National Lifeguard recertification and the updates to it is that they now also have a pool supervision for positioning and rotation specific to water park. And I think when they actually added that in, I thought about it and said, oh, that completely makes sense because positioning rotation is so much of a bigger deal in a water park setting to be able to run an effective water park. So they've now embedded that into the recertification as well. The one shocker that was more for me when I actually looked at sort of like the updates was that for pool and for waterfront, for a recert, it is not required to evaluate management of spinal injury victim. So you know how similar to like the underwater swim where you do it in the full course and then you don't do it in the recertification as a mandatory item, it's no longer a mandatory item. So let's say if an NL examiner says, hey, I have extra time here and let's make the best out of it to help people be more comfortable and prepared, they could choose to run it, but it's not a required item. So as NL examiners are looking at the test sheet, it is slightly different, but the essence of the research, as I mentioned previously, those three buckets are still going to be there.
Fantastic. Okay, I think I'm good. I'm going to research.
Okay, so I'm an affiliate with the Life Saving Society. I work for the city of Woodstock, and these updates are coming. This new program's coming. As an affiliate, how does this affect me? What should I know as an affiliate? How can I be better prepared?
Yeah, of course. So affiliates have the opportunity to implement as quickly as they're able to. So what I would do as an affiliate is first make sure that all of the instructors that are going to be delivering have attended one of the update processes. So I mentioned earlier, there's 3 different ways. One is going to be through the synchronous update clinic. So it's facilitated by a National Lifeguard instructor trainer. That is going to be tracked in a way that test sheets are submitted. And what's also produced is a clinic completion on your member profile. So if you go to findamember.ca and you type in your Life Saving Society member ID number and you've attended one of those clinics, it will show up on your member profile. So you as an affiliate, if you want to make sure that your National Lifeguard instructors have completed the formal synchronous training for the update clinic, then that's your way to do your quality check to make sure that they've done that. Whereas the other 2 methods, there is no submission to the Life Saving Society. So it's more on an honor system. So an affiliate can decide which way you want your instructors to deliver that. If you as an affiliate want to deliver these National Lifeguard instructor updates, you will have to secure a National Lifeguard instructor trainer that has completed the update, and they'll have all the resources on the leadership library to be able to deliver that. But hosting these update clinics will all be posted on our website in terms of what you need to do. Next, I would go through the National Lifeguard exam policy, including updating, and reading through what the changes are, including the equipment for different organizations, particularly municipalities, may need to flow with their budget timelines and their spending timelines. So just taking a look at that and looking at what you do need to procure. But otherwise, the program descriptions, there's no changes. The number of hours, there's no changes. The number of research hours, there's no changes. So it's just really the update of the content itself is different.
Right. And good point too about like you purchasing the equipment. I need to make sure it's going to fit within my budget and timelines there too. So thank you very much, Merrick.
So I guess now, is there anything else we should know about this new program? Anything else that we haven't maybe covered in our questions that we should share?
Yes, I actually have, I guess, 2 things I wanted to add. So I know earlier we were talking about management of spinal injured victims, where there are modifications that's different than what people are used to seeing, like there are updates to it. I do know that in discussions with other National Lifeguard, instructors, and even like them looking at the Bronze program, there's been sort of like this uneasiness, let's call it, between looking at the word immobilization of head and neck versus the motion of victim spine restricted during rollover and throughout. And I think with one of the interesting things was that I was very fortunate enough to, within sort of like the Lifeguard Services Committee, we have a few volunteers that are National Lifeguard instructor trainers that are also working in the industry as it relates to, whether it's clinical settings, paramedics, they work, that's their day job. And for the most part, when we were actually kind of dissecting sort of like these updates and try to figure out, how to assist affiliates, instructors, and trainers to transition over, the interesting comment was motion of victim spine restricted is actually the phraseology and the terminology that they use in paramedics and in other services as well. Like they actually recognize that, hey, this is what I was trained in my day job as like the new way of doing things. So really this transition with the Life Saving Society going to this terminology really is us kind of getting with the times. Like that's the whole point of the update, right? Is to make sure that we have a program that is relevant and that actually meets, sort of like the needs of affiliates. More specifically to this is an industry best practice. So it's good for us to it is a good change for us to transition into sort of like this kind of language. So hopefully, from the individual being in the water to them being removed and being on land to them now going on a stretcher to go to the hospital, that it is a common practice and mindset. So it is a mindset change. And I almost feel like it's not a like a physical standard change where it's more like hard. It's really, um, it's a perspective change. And I think this is going to take some time. I know when I look at the award guide, I always have to like pause, read it aloud, word for word, and then look up and then continue. So even for me, this is something that is very, very new. So if you ever catch me saying a mobilization, call me out on it, but I will need a lot of practice. But I think that's actually the one piece that I like to kind of share, just to kind of add a little bit more perspective to sort of like the change. And then the other thing that I actually wanted to share was that one of the things that Merrick and I were working on is that as we're looking at the NL update, and Merrick already mentioned it, it's an update. It's not a big revision. The content that we're transitioning over to is not it's really not that big of a difference in terms of sort of like the transition from one point to another. But one of the things that we kind of looked at was how can we provide better support to affiliates, to instructors, and to trainers. So that's sort of like why we kind of looked at, like let's have the synchronous learning the update with the credit. Let's be mindful that this is still a pretty hard time to get people to kind of gather. The asynchronous learning might be another approach that different people might want to tap into. One of the new things that we're very excited to share is that we're currently, this time around for this update season, let's call it, we're looking at offering in 2023, we're looking at offering a series of topical roundtable discussion webinars. And this is something that is new. Kudos actually to you, Steph and Jason. You guys started this whole podcast thing. We're piggybacking off of sort of what you guys are doing.
That's great.
And one of the things that we wanted to do was we recognize that as people are going through this transition, there might be some key questions that needs to be answered in a timely manner. There might be some topical areas where, let's say if we're noticing, hey, the Licensing Society staff, they're getting the same question over and over and over again. They ask it like 5 times a day. That's the load that they're getting. Let's address it in a timely manner and in a healthy and productive way. So in the 2023, so recommend you guys check the website. At one point, the information is going to be there in terms of how to kind of access these roundtable webinars. We don't really know what to call it yet, but that sounds pretty catchy for now. So we'll stick with that for this podcast. But we're going to take a look at what are some of the challenges that maybe instructors are facing that needs a little bit more clarification. What are some of the things maybe that affiliates need to better run the program so they are running a quality program? Understanding that the candidates that they're having are probably going to be their staff, right? So you kind of want to put a little bit more attention to detail into training these lifeguards because we're probably going to be using them in the future. So we are going to be taking a look at that. We don't really have all the topical items yet, but definitely as we're going through this update, definitely encourage affiliates, instructors, examiners, trainers. If you have feedback, please don't hesitate to share with the Licensing Society staff. And then as we're compiling this information, that's going to help us build our calendar for 2023, how we can better meet your needs. So we're excited to really try it out. We have a lot of also excited volunteers that want to kind of jump on the bandwagon and to engage with affiliates and instructors and trainers across Ontario. So yeah, very excited for those 2 items.
That sounds like a great knowledge sharing opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Merrick, anything from, sorry, Jason. I love to interrupt you. Merrick, anything from you before we let you go?
Yeah, just following up on just what Adrian was just talking about. If you have any ideas yourself regarding any of the topical themes that you want to participate in as a knowledge expert yourself, please send us an email, experts@lifeguarding.com. experts@lifeguarding.com. Or otherwise, if you have any questions related to the National Lifeguard Update Program, the program itself, the changes, or any questions for that matter, again, always send us an email. One more time, experts@lifeguarding.com, and one of our amazing staff will get back to you with your question.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for being here. This is a big topic to cover, and I hope that this sort of format in this podcast will help instructors and instructor trainers and affiliates get some of the answers they need in hopefully a bit of a fun way. Really happy to have you both here and can't wait until the launch of the new program.
Okay, Stephanie, wasn't it fantastic having those
Great.
two on for this podcast?
Yeah.
Certainly
Absolute
some
experts.
experts.
Yeah, like the knowledge both of those two have, incredible. Yeah, really, really helpful.
Yeah, I feel like they could go on almost endlessly.
Yeah, we definitely had to cut them off a few times to keep them on task. They could talk about, the two of them probably sit around and have hour-long conversations. Program.
Yep, all about lifeguard services. It's amazing. So just kind of picking out a little bit of what they said, what was maybe one of your favorite things?
I think that I'm most excited for, most interested about is the new resources. Obviously, I'm now in the communications team, as we said in the intro. So that's my team that works on a lot of those with the National Lifeguard Services Committee, and obviously Merrick and his team as well. So I think that those have been really well put together and have such value for instructors and for trainers. So I think that that's a fantastic thing, and I hope that people enjoy them as much as we think they will.
And that's great too. You have a hand in that now, so you get to put your stamp on it, right?
Yeah.
You get to see it while it's being made. So that's really cool. I think the part that I like, since I'm the bronze chair, and I kind of like that part the best. Like, we now have a nice progression from bronze, especially bronze cross, but the bronze program to national lifeguards. I'm really looking forward to hopefully seeing more successful candidates coming into national lifeguard that are just more prepared, more confident, more comfortable with some of the skills that they're going to be performing. So I was really nice to hear that piece of it. So this was our first episode of season 2. We're going to try a couple new things this year. So can we give our audience a few teasers?
Now that we're veteran podcasters, we're ready to do some really cool things. So one of the things we're going to try are actually mini episodes, because these episodes, especially like this one in particular, was fairly long, but we have so much good information. So we're actually going to do smaller bite-sized interviews, sort of mini-sodes, if you will. And we're going to interview lifeguards, experts, people that work for the society, people that volunteer for the society, people who are on deck, people who are trainers, you name it. We're going to get interviews with different people from all across the organization, which I think will be really important, and sort of telling the story of what we do as a whole.
I also like to interview a few people that, started off as lifeguards and now they're professionals, maybe in a different area, but they always have really good links to how it helped them in their current role. And it might be as a lawyer, as a doctor, whatever, but it's just always interesting to hear that they always able to link it back and how much they learned as a lifeguard and how it helped them going through university, going into their professional career. So I love those interviews too. I'm really excited about some of those.
What else are you excited about?
The other thing we're going to try, we'll see how well this works, but we're going to try some live in-person podcasts.
Fun fact,
We'll
Jason
see.
and I have never met. No, I'm just kidding. We have met, but we haven't in a few years. So to get together and actually record a podcast in person will be so interesting and fun.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So until our next podcast, thank you, Stephanie. It's been a lovely time.